today I'm going to be discussing a bit about anatomy, occultism, cosmology, and folklore, right? So, to develop a story, you're basically going to be using these principles and also like the 7 principles. You can think of it as the 7 classical planets and their characteristics, or the 7 chakras, or 7 root races, or 7 planes of existence, so on and so forth. So not only are they using those type of ideas to develop a story, they're also using zoomorphism, anthropomorphism, and personification. So when it comes to something like personification, that is basically attributing human form, characteristics, abstract concepts, emotions to natural forces, seasons, or even emotions. Think of Snow White, for example. Snow White basically was personifying each emotion, whether it was sleepy, angry, dopey. I don't remember all their names, but they was personifying each emotion and giving them a human form, making them a dwarf, right? Now, when you think of zoomorphism is basically describing humans as non-humans or animals, or portraying animals, species as other animals, right? So, vampires and werewolves I'm going to be using as my example, and aliens as well. And then you also have anthropomorphism, which is attributing human traits and emotions to non-human entities. So when you think of, let's say, the Greek mythology, for example, some of the gods are anthropomorphized. Well, the planets are anthropomorphized as gods in Greek mythology, right? You have Hermes, who's tied into Mercury. Is it Zeus? I think Zeus, that ties into thunder, if I'm not mistaken, and so on and so forth. So that is an example of anthropomorphism, right? Now, when you think of, let's say, aliens, right? E.T., and then when they make stories about aliens, so they have this element of zoomorphism, which is, like I said, portraying species of animals as other animals, or non-humans as animals, right? When you look at the ET, and it also has an element of personification as well. When you look at an alien, sometimes to me, it either looks like an octopus, right? And octopus are very intelligent creatures. I believe they have the intelligence of a cat, right? So it has this element of zoomorphism as far as looking like some type of sea creature. Then it also looks like the brain. Now, the brain in occultism is tied to the moon, right? Or it's also tied to the arc, right? So the arc in occultism is tied to your headspace, your mind, right? So the arc will be like the spaceship. Your mind, your brain, consciousness being able to transcend the physical reality, gather information, and return back to the body, right? So when you see like a spaceship, which is most likely shaped like this dome shape, and then you have the element of the light beams coming out of the spaceship and abducting the cows or the people on the land. So that's basically using your brain and the thoughts, the mind that you have developed to absorb people, abduct people into a concept, right? Into an idea. So when you have a far out idea, a far out way of thinking, you are considered an alien, right? So they take these ideas, they personify it, they personify a mind state, a brain, right? And they develop the story about extraterrestrials, or even if they met someone who had a foreign way of thinking and their way of thinking abducted them into certain concepts, taught them certain things, right? That would be like an alien, right? So that's one example. Now let's talk about like vampires, right? So vampires are basically a personification of the sun and the heart. In occultism or in alchemy, The sun is tied to your heart, which is also tied to gold. Now think of like when a vampire is affected. What is a vampire affected by? A vampire is affected by the sun. And how do you kill a vampire? You would stab a vampire in the heart with a stake. So there you have the personifications of the heart, the sun, and a bit of zoomorphism element, because the vampire is like half bat, half human, right? Same thing when it comes to the werewolf. Now, what affects the werewolf? Transformation happens at what? The full moon, right? Now, how do you kill a werewolf? With silver bullets. The moon is tied to silver. The moon is also tied to your mind, right? So even when you think of, let's say, the term monsters, right? Monsters will be like Monday stars. Stirs mean. Stir is basically one that handles or operates. So a monster will be like how the moon handles or operates. Like the freaks come out at night. All the stars, or when I think of stirs, I also think of stars. So all the creatures come out when the moon is out, right? Monday, the moon day. All the stars come out when the moon is out, when it's nighttime. So these are just a few examples of how they're developing folklore, and they also have the dualistic elements as well, dark and light, good and evil.